Welcome. Thanks for checking back on this series. This is the ultimate all-road steel custom bike build video series that I'm documenting. So this is the video number 2. If you haven't seen video number 1, I'll go ahead and put a card up here on your screen. You can go ahead and check that out first. That'll give you some information about what we're talking about. So on today's video, I'm going to be revealing the bike design. In the last video, you'll recall I did a bunch of measurements and I filled out the form and sent it off to John Fitzgerald of Fitz Cycles. He's the mastermind and craftsman who was building my bike for me. And so now he's working on it. And he has sent me back a Cad drawing which depicts the frame design. It shows the geometry, it shows the angles. Not all of the features are ironed out as of yet. So what we're talking about today is where we are currently with the design. If you're interested in a custom bike frame yourself, I think this video series might be very helpful. I hope it's helpful. Okay, well, let me get this up on your screen and let's go through it. All right, so what you see now is the Cad drawing that John prepared for me. The seat tube is kind of long. It's a 58 millimeter or 58 centimeter, 580 millimeter length. And yet the top tube is only 56. So it's a taller, shorter frame. And that's because I have a pretty long inseam for my height. So a lot of times you see a 58 centimeter seat tube, you'll see a 58 centimeter top tube. But in my case, I've got the shorter top tube. This bike is built around a 650B wheel with a 48 millimeter tire. So everything that's set up here as far as the trail, the fork, the bottom bracket height, and the hub height from the ground, that's all set from a 650B by 48 millimeter tire. So if I were to run smaller tires, what that's going to do is that's going to increase the trail a little bit. It's also going to lower the bike. So we have, for a bottom bracket drop right now, we have 273 millimeters. So if I were to drop the tires down a few millimeters in size, go to 40, say a 42 millimeter, then my bottom bracket will lower down proportionately to the size of the tires. You can take a look right now and see that the head tube angle is 72.5 degrees and the seat tube is 73.5 degrees. So the head tube is pretty slack, but not too slack. It's not 71 or 72, it's 72.5. So it's not your real steep angle like you would find on a road racing bike, but not as relaxed as something you might find on a touring bike. So it's kind of in between. It's going to have a 67 millimeter fork offset, and that's because this bike is going to have a very low trail front geometry. The trail, as you can see down here, is 36 millimeters. So that's a very low trail. If you're not familiar with trail and what it does for handling, basically a lower trail bike has quicker steering, and it also has, so that's good for like if you're going to put weight on the front handlebar bag, or if you're going to put weight on the front fork using like panniers or something like that. The low trail helps to keep the steering feeling more natural when you have weight on it. Now when it's unweighted, it's not to say that it won't feel good when you're steering. It'll have kind of quick steering, it'll feel very responsive. So when you put input in, it's gonna turn. The top tube of this bike is going to be level. That is a aesthetic design choice that I favor. I have a couple bikes that are the 7. I don't know if you can see it. There's a 7 back there. That's my road bike. It has almost a level top tube, but it's got it's just a very slight angle. The touring bike, let's see, the touring bike, which is probably can't. Yeah, you can't see it. My touring bike is a very level top tube, and the 7 on the road bike that I have in the back, which you probably can't see because it's too dark, is also more or less level, but does have a slight angle. Why do I like that? Well, for one, aesthetically, I love it. I think it looks really nice. But also for practical reasons, I like it because with a bigger area within the frame, you can fit things like a frame bag if you like, or you can put really tall water bottles. So there's, you know, more room in there. You can fit pumps if you need to, like a frame pump. There's lots of things you can do inside that frame. Now the downside would be if you're on a trail and you're doing some single track and you're coming to something very technical, where you can't get your foot all the way down onto the ground without hitting the top tube. That's really the only disadvantage. The argument could be made that longer seat stays create a more flexible frame. You could also argue that a longer seat stay weighs more, so you're adding a little more weight to the bike itself. You're also making the seat tube effectively longer. I fully understand that this frame would not be as light as it possibly could be, but it's also not going to be that much heavier either. Longer seat stays provide more flexibility to the frame, and frame flexibility translates into comfort. And how that works is because when a bike is riding on a rough surface, it itself is sort of a suspension. A rigid suspension it is, but the more flexible the bike is, the more suspension effect you will get. Now, the other thing I'll mention is that this bike is not a touring bike. I know what it kind of looks like here. This looks like a touring bike, but this is not a touring bike. The frame, the tubing we've selected will be standard size tubing. So it's it's pretty small in diameter, but also we're going with very thin tubing. And the reason is I want this frame to be very light and springy. I want it to feel like it's got some give to it. This is the update video of where we are. In the next video, I'll try and cover a little more about the tubing itself. I'm going to talk to John and see if I can find out what the tubing is that he's recommending, and we'll get that information. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you find this video series helpful. If you have any suggestions, ideas, or comments of your own, feel free to leave those down below. And thanks again for all of the nice comments you all have been leaving in the other videos. It's been great reading them. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to post another ride video soon. In fact, I can't wait to go for another ride soon. So anyways, maybe I'll see you out on the road. If not, have a wonderful evening. Check back for future videos, and I will see you in the next one.